Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to part one of LinkedIn for the Job Search, a two-part series covering all you need to know about this important job search tool. We've got people continuing to join us, which is great, but I do want to go ahead and get started because we've got a lot to cover. Whether you're actively or passively looking for a new job, LinkedIn should definitely be an essential part of your strategy, and it can be really helpful from both a networking and a research standpoint. But it's not just about job seekers. And Aaron is going to talk about this much more in a minute, but on the company side, it has been reported that more than 80% of companies are now using social media for recruiting talent. And of that 80%, 95% are using LinkedIn. So where do you start? I am thrilled to have Aaron Swart here with us today to walk you through that process. Aaron is a 96 grad from NC State and the CEO of Panorama Personal Development Group, a company focused on creating and delivering sustainable personal and online brand strategies. He and his staff consult with individual and corporate clients to create and deliver brand development coaching, social media marketing strategy and campaign execution, and innovative, savvy website development and design. He is a LinkedIn expert, and he has leveraged this site with success both personally and professionally, so there's really no one better to lead this topic. Before we begin, I want to go over a couple of quick housekeeping items. We'll be taking questions periodically throughout the session, so if you have a question and you have a headset with a microphone, feel free to raise your hand, and we'll be happy to give you the microphone live. Or if you'd prefer, you can simply chat your question into the chat box on the bottom left of your screen. Just keep in mind, if you're typing to us in that box, it is a public forum, so anything that you type is going to be visible to everyone. So again, welcome from the Alumni Association, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron and we'll get started.
Thanks so much, Catherine. I really appreciate you bringing me in to talk to the alumni about LinkedIn and this amazing tool to help brand yourself for career success. I want to go over some quick objectives before we begin the process. The first thing I want to talk about is the importance of personal branding and online presence. Then I want to give a brief overview of LinkedIn, its history, and some statistics. I then want to talk about the LinkedIn profile and your basic do's and don'ts of LinkedIn. I want to go over some basic tips and tricks for you so that you are very savvy in terms of what you're doing online. And I want you to remember as we go through this that this part is the part one and the basic part. So remember that part two is definitely coming, and we'll have a lot of other pieces to that. First thing I want to talk about as we define ourselves online, how would you define personal branding? When you take a look at this picture, obviously what stands out here is the tulip, who is red and a little taller than the rest of the folks. But I want to let you know that as we move forward, we are really wanting to focus on how we can stand apart from the pack and really make a difference. And that's how we want to be viewed. We want to stand alone and stand apart so that we're able to advance in our career. A few things on personal branding. It's all about self-packaging. When you present yourself, it's really a gift, and it's a gift of service that you're bringing to others. And how you are perceived and how your brand is perceived is very important. It's also about the creation of an asset, and that's you. And it is constantly evolving. You are a human being, so you're constantly improving your brand and improving your skill sets as you go. And you are offering a unique value proposition to those that you meet in terms of your personal brand. You want to stand out. You want to offer something to the world, be it a skill or something that you're doing. And then also, you know, what is it that you're giving? What does it mean? What is the bottom line for the people that you are
Aaron,
in contact with?
One quick, my slides are not advancing, so on the top right there's a follow me button. on your screen? Will you make sure that's clicked on your end?
Okay. Uh-huh. Okay. Yes.
Okay. So we're still on the
Yes.
home page. So wherever you are,
Thank
you
you.
probably want to move us over.
Right here. Right here. Tell me what screen you're seeing, Catherine.
I am still seeing the welcome screen.
Tell me what screen you're seeing, Catherine.
Is everyone still seeing the welcome screen?
Okay, now have...
There we go. Now I see objectives.
All right, great.
Perfect.
Okay. All right, great. So again, we want to cover the importance of personal branding and your online presence. We want to have a brief overview of LinkedIn, its history, and some statistics. We want to talk about your profile, your basic do's and don'ts. And we want to talk about some tips and tricks. Okay, and remember again that part 2 is coming. We have a lot of things to cover in part 1. So just to let you know, the basics will be covered here. And I'm so sorry about the slides, but here we are with the tulip again. How would you define personal branding? Again, this guy's standing up above the rest, and we want to make sure that your profile is doing just that you're standing out. Okay, and we want to talk about self-packaging again. You're a gift, and your service is a gift. We want to make sure that people are properly perceiving that, and that you're able to give them a service that is unique. And it's also the creation of an asset, which is you. And you're offering a unique value proposition to the world. What's different about you and your skill sets, what value you bring, and what will the result be that you will bring to the table. The last thing I want to talk about in terms of personal branding, your brand needs to beg emotional portability. In other words, when someone talks with you and looks at your profile and looks at your resume and sees what you have done, you want to make sure that that person is so moved that they go and talk to someone else about that, or in terms of a recommendation, or just verbally talking about you and what you do. And again, your branding should be results oriented. What is in it for them? What is in it for your client? And how are you going to serve them? You guys are in charge. Ladies and gentlemen, you're in charge of your LinkedIn profile. You're in charge of your personal brand. And we want to make sure that you deliver excellence when you are communicating your personal brand. Personal branding is not a blatant self-promotion. Obviously, your brand is about who you are, what you bring to the table, and creating that self-promotion is not about service. It's about getting from others. And the idea is that you want to give. And fabricating a persona is not something you want to do when you're branding yourself, because that fabrication will show up. It won't be true to you. Watered down is just not a good way to present yourself. You want to be clear. You want to be specific. And personal branding is not exhausting for you. It should energize you in talking about you and your skills and what you bring to the table. So the 3 C's of personal branding: you want to have connection. Connection to others, connection to a group or organization, connection to a corporate brand, as well as who you are. Competence. You want to bring competence to the table in what you do and how you do it and how you communicate that. And then again, you want to be consistent in your messages that you present in your resume, the messages you present online and in any social media venue. Quick things about LinkedIn. The bulk of LinkedIn's business comes from companies who are hiring their services to help them recruit top talent. That's LinkedIn's job. Their goal is to hire companies or to bring companies aboard to recruit talent. LinkedIn encourages targeting passive candidates. So when you're online and when you're promoting yourself on your profile, you want to look like that passive candidate. In other words, you want to look like you are successful, and you will be. When you're branding yourself, you will be having activities and being involved with things that are a part of you, and you'll stay involved, and you'll look that way in your LinkedIn profile, especially if you're out of work. You want to make your profile look like you are enjoying what you're doing, and even if you aren't currently employed, your LinkedIn profile, there are ways to show that you are involved and engaged and love what you're doing. The last question: how are you appearing to your hiring managers and clients? I mean, what is it that you want to show them? What is the appearance? What does that look like? The 3 C's, connection, competence, and consistency. All of these things on LinkedIn all get results for you. Why should you use LinkedIn? Just a couple of quick things. It is the premier social networking site for professionals. Again, Catherine talked about that statistic early on, that 90-some% of the 80% that use social media, they're using LinkedIn. When LinkedIn was launched on May 5th, they really didn't see a whole lot of, they didn't, I guess they underestimated their success, but they totally have grown like crazy, but they didn't really file for trading until January of 2011. And as of this month, LinkedIn has reported more than 200 million registered users in over 200 countries. So this last statistic just talks quickly about their profit and how they're doing. So companies are using LinkedIn. They are paying LinkedIn to use their services to recruit talent, and it is working. LinkedIn is making a lot of money in this venture. So some quick prelims before we launch right into the profiles. Please go ahead and, if you have not created a profile, go to www.linkedin.com and create an account. Use an email address that you're familiar with and a password. And if you're already there, that's great. So at this point, I'm assuming if you've joined the webinar that you have either created an account or it's already activated. So the first thing that I really want you to do is turn off your activity broadcast. When you begin to create your profile or edit it, you need to turn off the activity broadcast. And I'm going to show you how to do that. If you'll see on this slide here, on your profile page, on the right-hand side at the top, you will see your name. So I'm going to highlight that very quickly. Right here, you're going to see your name, and the drop-down box will appear when you hover over it, and then you want to click on Settings right here. Your next screen that will come up will be your settings profile. You want to come down here to Privacy Controls and turn on or off your activity broadcast is the link you want to click on. The next thing you will see is a box that comes up when you've clicked on that to check or uncheck this section here, letting people know when you change your profile, make recommendations, or follow companies. Please uncheck that when you are in the process of editing your profile so that folks who are connected to you will not see every single change that you make during the time that you are preparing your profile to be published. This particular presentation has directions just in case you do not want to you don't want to roll through it willy-nilly. This will give you a step-by-step way to go about it. Okay. Let's get started. Here is what the profile is going to look like, the profile page, actually the login page, excuse me. And when you set up your account, you are going to have you put your first name and your last name, an email address that you're familiar with, and a password that you can remember. And just click Join Now. Again, we talked about that early on, but go ahead and do that so that you create a basic LinkedIn account. My suggestion to you is that when you do this, again, make sure that you're using an email and a password that's familiar to you and that you will remember. So let's start with your name and your professional headline. Your name should be the only thing that's on this particular part where it asks just for your name on the profile itself. Please don't put something else there. Okay, when you put your name, go ahead and put some advanced degrees behind that and certifications. That's okay. But what I don't want to see for you is that you would put something other than your full name. You want to own that space on LinkedIn. You want to own your name. Your professional headline will shout your brand. Simple statements about you and your skills, and maybe a tagline would be great in your headline portion. Okay, and I'll show you in just a minute what my profile looks like in terms of a headline. And it will be different for different folks who want to express their brand in different ways. Just remember that your headline that you're going to create really promotes the 3 C's for you, so make it count. Whether it's positive or negative, it's going to promote that. So when I'm looking at this particular profile here, which is mine, you can see my name. It has my degree after it, the advanced degree after it, and then the different pieces that make up my brand in the headline section. So peak performance strategy, personal branding, and social media consulting are my things. So I am owning those particular headline pieces. And then my tagline, go from great to world class. So again, that is up to you, whether you have your own business or company, or whether you're seeking employment in a certain area. This particular headline is really important. What you also don't want to do is tell the world that you're seeking your next opportunity or that you're seeking employment. You want to put down some of those core things about you that you're really good at and are part of your brand in the headline. So let's go over a few things about your photograph. The first thing I want to talk about is not using an old photo. There are a few things that are worse when someone meets you and you're face-to-face and you're networking with them and they see your profile photo is from 10 years ago and you look very different than you do now. Use a photo of yourself in your profile. Please don't use an object. I see a lot of folks and some clients that I've worked with who place objects in that section, and it doesn't represent their brand very well because people don't know what they look like. So photos should be professionally done if possible. Try not to use glamour shots. That's a little bit over the top in terms of a LinkedIn professional profile. Just make sure to smile and wear some colors that complement you and your particular coloring. And also avoid patterns when you're dressing for the photograph. Try not to have other people in your photos, and please don't use photo images that have been cropped, that crop other people out of the shot, that are just using, that you're using just for yourself. So make sure the background in the photo is not distracting in any way. Relaxing and looking directly at the camera is a really good idea. Again, that reflects your brand. Another good idea is to have someone take multiple shots, be it a professional photographer or a friend who's very good at photography, and ask for their opinion on which one makes you seem most approachable. They know you best, so make sure that you're seeking some counsel from others. Here's some tips for men. Try to wear a dark suit, blue or black dress shirt, no t-shirts, Hawaiian shirts, or busy or crazy patterns. And tips for women, please wear something you feel comfortable in. No t-shirts or big, busy patterns. Soft, dark V-necks look great, especially on a picture for LinkedIn. Black always works, and try to avoid white. So as you can see in my picture, I have a background that complements my coloring, hopefully just my skin tone. And there is the larger shot there of my picture when you blow it up, when you click on it for it to be expanded. So let's talk a little bit about activity. This is the first section underneath your picture and your headline that you want to pay close attention to. Your activity is an area where you can consistently communicate with your connections, and you're also going to be able to see what others are saying, what other people are posting, what they're commenting on or liking in terms of articles and things that other companies that they're following are posting online. And when you post, your messages should match your brand, whatever it is that you're trying to communicate to potential employers or to clients. You want to make sure that what you're saying is matching that. Okay, and also you're going to get a chance to see who is connecting with who and what companies are of interest to those folks who you are connected. You can also post links to articles that you've read and comment on them. In a way, it becomes a blog for you. And you can even link this activity once you post to a Twitter account. And we can talk about that in the future. But this is something very, very expeditious, as you're able to save some time by posting to both accounts in terms of your branding. So the background is the next section that comes up. And you want to talk a little bit in this first section about who you are, and again, that big, powerful message. And it doesn't need to be a lot of text. It can talk about simply what you do, your goal in serving others, and what the result will be, and then some skills. Again, it's a highlight of your profile. Your message here will invoke others to either stay on or leave your page. Again, emotional portability is the key factor here. When they see your picture, read your headline, and then take a look at the summary of what you offer, this is where people will take this message to others. Try to use creative, powerful language within your brand. And if you're one who writes very simply and succinctly, that's your brand. It's okay to do that. Powerful language is helpful in communicating your brand. And get to the point. It's sometimes I have clients who have paragraph upon paragraph of what they want to say here, and the reader who comes on the page may get lost or even bored. Not that your content isn't important, but getting to the point helps them in moving forward and looking at your entire profile. Make sure you stick with this message that you talk about here in this section and all of the other sections in LinkedIn. And there are many sections to add to your page that will augment your brand. Here is the experience section. This is what it looks like. What you're going to do here is list the current and or past positions that you've held, experiences, basically jobs that you've been involved with and things that you've done. So this is what it would look like on the top end. And your list could be very short, depending on where you've been in your career, or it could be very long with different experiences with different groups and organizations. Again, this speaks to your job history, what you've done, how you've served the community with your skills. It also can reflect recommendations from others, as you will notice from the first page there that we looked at, that other people can recommend you underneath those jobs. And they can talk about your experience of directly working with you, or having been a manager of yours and your performance. And it's always good to have people speak well of you. Dates are important here. Employers will take a look at not only length of time, but that your dates match up with each job that you've listed. They will find the gaps in employment, and you're going to want to communicate on LinkedIn what those gaps are. Again, here, when you list your experience under each job, you want to be brief. You want to have poignant statements. Those are key. Long paragraphs tend to distract folks. This also reflects your brand when you're using simple statements and words that describe your skills that you performed or things that you did in each role. It reflects your brand. So volunteering, this is a really great section. This is your chance to talk about what you are passionate with and how you work that in the community. If you're in transition, this area needs to be your focus. I will say to you that volunteering and having a role within an organization with which you're passionate, it is incredibly important to focus on this. This section also just gets to the heart of you, the things that drive you each day and the things that are important to you. The messages that you put here really, really resound that you are working hard to network and you want to stay involved in the community, whether or not you are currently working. But if you're not, this is an even louder message that you're presenting to your audience. So employers, potential employers, are looking at that section and they're noticing that you're taking initiative with things that represent your brand
Aaron,
outside of the job hunt.
Yes. I have a question from Emily, and I think that the volunteer section addressed this, but I want to go ahead and read it out loud as well. How do we show, describe, explain gaps in employment on LinkedIn?
One of the best ways to do that, I'm going to give you an example. For me, there was a gap when I was basically raising my son, just to put it out there. I actually put that on my LinkedIn profile, that gap in employment was a time when I was indeed employed, taking care of my son for 2 years. So that was a very important thing. Now, the other piece of that is putting the role that you have as a volunteer as a job, like within the first section that we talked about, and putting that date as the tail end of the last job that you have to present, so that
yeah,
gap
I think
is
that's great.
taken care of.
And just to add to that a little bit, LinkedIn is a great tool and it's a part of the process, but part of the job search process is also getting out from behind the computer, and so utilizing tools like LinkedIn to make connections with people that can hopefully lead to further conversations where you have the chance to address some of those concerns that may come up.
Right. Good point. Okay. So thank you, Emily, for that question. Good point. So let's move on to organizations here. Again, this is a section where you can just list the things that you belong to. Again, this is also communicating your brand very clearly. If you're involved in the community with different programs, depending on whether or not you're in business for yourself or whether or not you belong to organizations that tie into your career track, you want to list those things here. Membership organizations, things that you're a part of. Okay, so again, professional organizations are definitely highlighted. Activity with these groups is key, and you should promote that. Simply put, again, your brand, you're speaking yourself, you're speaking your brand when you're involved. So you want to let folks know what you're doing. As far as the 3 C's go with LinkedIn, this displays the competence area. This displays also that within your discipline, you're desiring to continue your professional development, and you're getting out there and you're talking about your brand, and you're continuing education or certifications or things that you're doing within these organizations. So here's the next section, your honors, your certifications, your projects, things that you're doing. Those are 3 different sections. So we're gonna kind of conglomerate those and talk about them. Your past achievements reflect your brand. Please know that. Don't hide them. I would say that those achievements are super important, and you're going to want to list them. This is your brag board. This is a way for you to say, hey, I take initiative. I get out there. Here are some of the things that I've won. Here are some of the certifications that I have worked towards and achieved, and some of the projects that I've worked on that have been really important to my career and important to the bottom line of an organization. So when you're adding these, please find a way to attach service to your language, and how winning the award or certification or working on the projects with which you've been a part have really spoken to the bottom line of that organization and how you've helped them move forward. So your skills and experience, or expertise rather, is a section where you can actually be endorsed. You have the ability here to list up to, I believe, 50 different skills that you can list on your profile. And in doing that, folks will see that you've added that on your LinkedIn activity area. They will see that you've added that as a skill set. And so at that point, your peers and your future connections can see what you're about with your skills. And others have the ability to endorse these skills at any time. So this is a great way, instead of writing a recommendation and going through the process of sending the recommendation over and having the volley back and forth with the recommendation and then posting that recommendation. This is something that your connections can endorse you with at any time without you asking. This is your chance to give back. When you get a recommendation, or an endorsement from someone for a skill set, you can message them or talk to them. This is a great way to get networking done. Okay. So here we have the example of endorsements. When you open someone's profile, and here is Catherine's, for example, you will have a blue box come up that says, does Catherine have these skills or expertise? Now, Catherine has already listed these under her section of LinkedIn as things that she, yes, indeed, does have skill set in and is very good at doing. So you have the choice at this point to endorse her for any of those skills that are listed. So those endorsements is a great way to strike up a productive conversation. Make sure you're endorsing skill sets that you've directly experienced by association or in working with your connections. A lot of times I've seen folks endorse every single person on their LinkedIn profile. Again, this is my next point. When you do that, folks tend to think you're up to something if you're endorsing every one of your connections. So endorse wisely. Make sure that you do it sparingly and you do it meaningfully in a way that is productive for you and encouraging and involves networking for others. So here is your other section on education and other information. You want to make sure that when you are listing the education that you have been through and have achieved, that you don't lie about it. I've seen a lot of folks, not many of my clients, but not trying to lie, but just being posting things, and I've heard also of others posting things that just aren't true, and have, because they've either hidden a degree or not posted it, that they have actually lost a job opportunity because of that. So as a student or a former student with an educational institution, you can get recommendations. If you're connected to your instructors or people that have been in teaching roles for you, you can be endorsed by those folks. Here's another place where you can talk about societies and activities. On my profile, for instance, I list that I was a part of Theta Chi fraternity, and you're able to list those things very clearly. This is a neat tool, and I just want to say that you can edit your profile so that degree dates do not show up. You have to go in to a certain section and just click at the very top where it just has a dash, and we can show that at another time. But there is a way that you are able to have those dates not show up on your page, and it may be helpful for you, and it may not.
Aaron,
so,
I have
use your
a quick
judgment on
question
that.
here. Joel's wondering if not listing all of your degrees could be a problem, and how so?
Yes, just recently I've run into a couple of stories where folks actually submitted an application and were employed and were in the training process, and the employer ran a background check and found out that this particular individual did not list a master's level degree that they achieved so as to get the job in this particular arena, and they were let go because they did not disclose everything. So it was looked upon as being dishonest. So
yeah,
I would not recommend it.
If you don't list something, whatever you choose to not list, if it can at all come up that you do have that experience or that degree, whether it leads to being let go or not, it still, again, as Aaron says, seems dishonest and could raise a red flag for employers. And in this market with the competition the way it is, you just want to be as open and honest as possible.
So here's the section that I want to spend some time on. Recommendations. Recommendations are huge for many, many reasons. This is an area that's very sensitive as well as very helpful for your brand. I want to talk about how serious recommendations are. In the best light, recommendations are obviously something where you want to be shown in the best light, and you would never approve a recommendation that was negative. So when people read recommendations, they are assuming that they are positive. But you can also ask folks to edit or delete them should things warrant a change. For instance, if you have a client who you've helped and they actually end up getting a job because of your efforts, they can go into the recommendation that they have already created for you and edit it to add additional information. On the flip side, if you are in a relationship or business relationship that has gone sour, whether it be one-on-one or in a corporate setting, and there are recommendations that are posted, you have the right to go into your profile and remove a recommendation that you no longer want to show on your profile or theirs. So again, recommendations are a reflection of your brand and your relationship with your colleagues. This is really, really important. And also when companies or hiring managers go and look at your profile, this is huge for your brand. You must be connected to give and receive a recommendation. If someone is not on LinkedIn and they don't have a profile, there's no way for you to ask for a recommendation because they have to be on LinkedIn to receive that invitation. Another really neat thing about this is you or they must approve the recommendation that you've given or they've given you for it to be posted. So if there are a lot of spelling errors or things like things that you don't want to have included, you can always send a reply back to them and ask them to edit the content. And you can even give them some suggestions,
Aaron,
spelling errors or whatnot.
I have another question. This is from Corey, and
yes.
We may get into this in the next part of the series. But Corey's question is around the link to LinkedIn on your resume, because obviously that public profile, the link that they give you is very long. And so how do we personalize that?
You can actually go into, really quickly, you can actually go into your profile and set a personal URL. You can put your name. For me, it's linkedin.com/Aaron M. Swart MSW, and that's it. And I do post that on my my CV or anything electronic that people can click on, and it's a shorter form. You can also go to a couple of websites that shorten links. bit.ly, bit.ly is another great site that you can register to just shorten links of any type for any.
And I have a question from Anuj. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Does a person need to be a part of the same organization to recommend me?
No. If you have a relationship, a business relationship with someone, if you've listed, basically, if you've listed a job on LinkedIn and someone has worked with you in that position or as a part of what was going on in that, so if they were a vendor that came in and worked with you, or if they were a consultant that came in and worked with your organization and then also worked with you, they can also recommend you, but they will go under the recommendation page and choose where they have worked with you in order to recommend you appropriately. So if it's not listed on your profile where all the places you've worked, when you ask for a recommendation, they won't be able to recommend you for that specific thing that you were involved with them if it's not on your LinkedIn profile. I'm hoping that may have opened another can of worms, but I'm hoping that answers the basic question.
And we've had a couple more questions come in. Would you recommend the base level LinkedIn, or should this person get a premium? What's the major difference between the two levels?
The premium account allows you to see more of people's profiles, and it gives you some more advantages in terms of connections and in-mails. It gives you credits for certain things to be able to contact potential employers or people that you want to connect with more readily without having to know their email address and networking with them one-on-one. those are some of the highlights. And then also if you have a business, it's good to have like the business premium account as opposed to a job seeker account. Now I will say this, if you are a job seeker and you choose to upgrade to a job seeker account, everyone who goes to your page knows you're looking for a job. So you need to think about that before you, I guess, pay for a premium account.
I think there's definitely a stigma that goes along with getting the little label that says I am a job seeker. And we have another question here from Brad. How would you handle lesser or part-time jobs that you took after being laid off from a very good job while seeking another position?
I think you should highlight the volunteer work and the things that you've done in the community on your LinkedIn profile to deal with that issue. I think that you should really highlight those things that you've done and not really so much focus on those other pieces.
And the questions are coming in right now. So, yeah.
They sure are, and I see them too. And I see one. I want to answer Anne's.
Sure.
I don't know if it's okay to go to that. If someone were to remove their endorsement of a skill, would the fact that they removed that show up? Again, remember at the beginning of the webinar we talked about turning your activities off. You can do that, but at the same time when you remove that. You can do that, but at the same time when you remove that, it's not going to show up in an activity that you've done. Now, again, because it could be perceived as a very negative thing, and it could actually be positive for you. So most of the time, I think it's probably for less than positive reasons. So LinkedIn does not post that as an activity that you've done. Okay, so let's move along. I'm not hearing any responses. Okay, so let's move along. I'm not hearing any responses or seeing anything else right now. Let's see.
Aaron.
Yeah.
I have one more question from Rudy. Is it advisable to list webinars attended in the experience section?
That's a good question. You can certainly do that, and it's really not a problem unless it's. I would just list it under a specific job or a specific like I guess an actual job that you've done and list it as something you did within the job. If you're just listing, attending a webinar under skills, that's also okay, but a lot of times that's really more or less for a class that you took and like a certification course or something like that. But you know what? I don't see any problem with that because if folks see that you're really involved in learning social media and learning networking online, list it. There's no problem.
Great, thanks.
Mm-hmm. So here I want to talk about groups and following companies online. There are two sections here that you see on my profile, the groups and who I am currently following. Now, this is not the exhaustive list, apparently, but this is a really neat section. You can join up to 50 groups and, in addition, subgroups of different groups that you're involved with. And really, it's a great way, again, to network, to post articles, thoughts, things that you're involved with, announcements, and so on. So some groups, when you join, or when you apply to join, have moderators and administrators, and some must be approved before you join the group. And this is just mainly for the group's focus and function. It's not because they want to make sure you're, a perfect person. They just want to make sure that you're adding to the group's discussions and their brand, their identity as a group. So once you've joined and have been approved, you can post your thoughts in the groups you've joined. It's also, again, a good way to network and with thought leaders like yourself. So you can follow as many companies as you wish. There is currently no limit as to the number of folks that you can follow. Okay. There's also a section on following thought leaders that post. A lot of times they work under an organization such as Entrepreneur or Inc., those magazines, or Harvard Business Review. There are lots of bloggers under those companies, and they are considered thought leaders and actually have to apply with LinkedIn to become a thought leader. And you will run across articles like that if you start joining groups such as, Inc., Entrepreneur, Harvard Business Review, and so on. You will see some of these bloggers start to come up, and you can actually follow them and get their information. Again, just keep in mind when you're joining these groups to follow the 3 C's: connection, competence, and consistency.
Aaron, I have another question that just came in. When you have diverse experience in subsets of a particular field, what would be the best way to convey that in the summary without being too wordy?
The best way to do that is bullet points. I would say you need to do the overarching branding of who you are in the summary, your education, 15 plus years in, database networking, whatever it happens to be, whatever your particular field. And then if there are certain skill sets that people, employers are looking for, companies are looking for that are your brand and your expertise, list them in bullets.
Great, thanks.
Okay, so let me talk about making connections really quickly. When you have connections that you want online or that are connecting with you, please make sure that sending an invitation to connect comes from knowing a colleague well and that there is a history associated with you wanting to connect. Okay? Knowing someone on LinkedIn, that is a professional and asking them to connect on LinkedIn is very, very important. It's vital to your professional brand that you use LinkedIn in this way. Here's the do nots and the don'ts. Do not send an invitation to someone you don't know. Lots of things I'll talk about in just a minute about that, but LinkedIn really frowns on that for many reasons. Do not send an invitation without attaching a personal note and message that reminds your colleague of your interaction with them, some history, and some reasons why you want to connect. Okay? This is the professional way to go about doing it. When you go online and you see there are 5 people that you may know, because LinkedIn will give you that tool, they'll show that on the right-hand side of your page, you can actually invite folks to connect. And if you don't know them and you don't send them a note as to why you want to connect with them, that is not professional. And folks recognize that, especially if they don't know who you are, and they will report that to LinkedIn. Basically, they check a box that says, I don't know this person. Okay? So when you do that, when you are trying to connect with someone that you don't know and they report you, you only have so many strikes until LinkedIn will disable your account because they are aware that you are trying to connect with people that are not a part of your business and not a part of what you're doing. So a way to get around that when you make connections is to be introduced. If someone you know is connected to someone that you desire to get to know, you can be introduced, and that person, you can send an invitation to your connection to be introduced to that individual. My last bit of advice, my second to last, is really to make it about them. When you connect with someone, do it in the spirit of service, how you can help them and how you can help them, and what it is you're interested in about them so that they have the invitation to tell their story. Okay, and this is Big Brother message, but LinkedIn is watching. They are taking the data from your account, and if you abuse kind of some of their rules surrounding connecting, which is what I just covered, they will give you a warning, and they will basically only allow you to connect with individuals by knowing their email address. And if you don't know it, they will not
Aaron,
allow you to connect.
I have a question from Joel around this topic. If you have accepted a connection from someone you don't know personally, should you go back and remove them from your connections list?
I would say no, because when I was just starting out on LinkedIn, I did some of these things. I'm sure I did a few boo-boos. So if you have found that relationship, that LinkedIn relationship, to be positive, and you've gained from them, and you've had interaction with them that's also been positive, there's really not a reason to just remove them. It's a matter of going forward how LinkedIn is really tracking that.
And Erin, I've got another one from Natalie. If you graduated 4 to 5 years ago, is it appropriate to send an invitation to connect with professors if you are potentially seeking a letter of recommendation?
Yes, it is totally appropriate, and what I encourage you to do is to do just that. If you know the professor is going to remember you, again, when you go and connect with them, do not send them the generic email that says, "I just want to connect with you on LinkedIn." Okay, this doesn't give the professor recollection right away. It puts the work on their part to try and figure out who you are. But if you mention in that invite, hey, you remember when we worked on this particular project and I said this, or I contributed to the project this way, and whatever that interaction with that professor was about, they will more than likely not only remember but welcome you, because you remembered them and the impact that they had on your life. So yes, I would do that. I would not ask for a recommendation from that professor right away. I would connect with them, have a couple of conversations to get back on track with where they are in their lives as well as where you are, and then seek that recommendation.
Erin, I've got another one from Corey. He's wondering if you should include the fact that you're in a job search when you are sending a message to connect.
Interesting. Let me go back down here and check this out again. I think it depends. I'm going to say that. You have to trust that individual not to go and tell 5 other people that are searching for the same kind of work, or that people that they're going to. I think it's a matter of trust and the relationship that you've built with them. I certainly wouldn't do it with potential employers, obviously, but I think that if it's just a connection where you're networking, then yes. I mean, they need to know that information so that they can be working on your behalf as well.
I tend to tell people not to be that forward in the initial connection, but yeah, I think it depends on the situation and how comfortable you are with the person. I totally agree, Erin. I've got an interesting question from Leslie, who's wondering, is it true that you are only allotted 1,500 LinkedIn invitations in your lifetime? I was told this in another webinar.
I'm going to be honest. I have no idea. I have never heard that before, and I can research that
great. Yeah.
and get back with her.
I haven't either, Leslie.
I don't know that. I've never
if you want to, I'll send you a quick message with my email address, and Erin and I can follow up with you, but I have not heard that as well.
Okay, like I said, there are consequences for not following the rules that LinkedIn has really set forth. And if you have questions about the rules, if you think I haven't, been comprehensive here, if you're a real rule follower, go and go to LinkedIn's site and find out what all the rules are. But this is the most important piece, because if you can't connect with folks and you can't network and build relationships online, then LinkedIn is going to be a hard resource for you to use. Okay, at this point, I'll cover what's coming up in February just to give you a little bit of a teaser, but I'd like to entertain any other questions that folks may have. We've got a few minutes here before we have to say goodbye, so if there's anything that folks haven't asked that they want to, we have a few minutes here to do that.
Aaron, I'll let you know if things come up. If you want to copy of the slides, will we be able to share copies of the slides? There will be a link to the recording on the Alumni Association website, and that would be available within 48 hours, so definitely check that site. Yeah, and then
yeah, it looks like we're getting a bunch of questions.
Aaron, if you're open to sharing the slides, we could email those to the people that are online if you're open to that. But we can, so keep an eye out for an email from us with a link to the recording and possibly the slides. Want to get to these questions quickly. Anne is wondering, should family members ever endorse or recommend you?
I would say no, unless it is a family business and that relationship was strictly professional, because this is a professional networking engine, and you want to make sure that
Great.
You're doing that.
Laura is wondering, how do you link an award to a specific job?
It's under the actual job that you can list the award. If you, for instance, go on my profile, you can see some presentations that I've done under some jobs, some awards that I have won under some jobs. Also, if you can't figure out how to do that, it's fairly straightforward. But you can also just list it as a bullet point in the description of your job.
And I've got 2 questions on how you ask for recommendations.
You basically go to your profile, and there's a section. I don't have slides to show that right now, but there's a section where you can ask for recommendations. You click on that, and then it's going to come up with a large box that's going to ask you who do you want to have recommend you. You choose the name. Again, it has to be someone that you're linked in with. And so you will choose that name, and then there will be a canned message that says something to the effect of, could you please recommend me for the work that I've done? Thanks in advance for your help. Now that is, again, a section where you want to be very specific and very personal in how you ask for this recommendation from that individual. And then you send it along, and they can either accept that, fill out the recommendation, and send it back to you for approval, or not. It's a good way to start a conversation.
Great. And I have a question about whether you would list coursework from a master's level degree on LinkedIn.
Interesting. Now, you can list it under, again, your job description if you feel it is that important to list classes or coursework. What I would kind of steer clear of that, because people kind of know when you're in a degree some of the components of what you're taking in order to get that degree. But I would focus more on the certifications.
I would agree, and just echo that point, and also considering whether or not it's relevant to what you want to do, because listing a bunch of general coursework isn't going to mean as much to different audiences. So to keep that in mind. Rudy is wondering if you can reactivate an account that was previously closed.
Good question. Call LinkedIn about that. I think either you can reactivate it or create a new one. Because if it's closed, your name is not being used, more than likely.
Great.
I believe you can reactivate it.
One more question, and then I'm going to let you run through what's coming, and then if people want to stay on, we can continue to entertain questions. Kathy is wondering if you should show volunteer work dates.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't see a problem with that. I would also, when you are you're current volunteering, if you list it kind of as a job or as something you're currently doing, make sure you keep that date open-ended so it's current. So like it looks like an ongoing activity.
Great. Thanks, Aaron. If you want to go ahead and wrap up, and then if there are continual questions, we can stay on.
Okay, great. So in February, I'm going to be talking about just some advanced tips, and some of those include the job searches and job applications themselves. When you are using LinkedIn to search for a particular job in a particular industry, how to really go about doing that and to do it in a way that is savvy and will take advantage of your personal brand. And some more connection strategies I'm going to talk about and what not to do. Also about creating groups. If you are so inclined and so passionate about creating a particular group that really isn't already being utilized on LinkedIn, and how to go about doing that if that's something you desire to do. It's a good thing to do for networking as well as, again, joining other groups. And actually how to go about using the job manager on LinkedIn. Adding videos, images, and documents. Again, these could be things, again, under certain jobs that you have performed in the past. Videos of presentations that you've done for organizations. Images of things maybe that you created. If you're a graphic designer, for instance, things that you've done, your work. And documents, awards, lists, things that you've done that have that augment your brand online. And more stuff. So that's what's coming in February, and I just want to thank you for your time, and I want to open it up again for some last minute questions. And if there aren't any,
thank you so much, Aaron. This has been really informative. I hope that everyone has gotten some useful tips out of this, and we look forward to having you back for the next session in February. Let's see, Anne, for February, are there copyright issues with posting videos and documents, etc.?
There very well may be if you don't actually own the document. If you've turned in, say, a video and it's the property of that corporation, you would have to get permission to post it, I would imagine. Now, if it's your own video that you've made within an organization, your particular video, and you have ownership, then you're
Great.
Good.
And thank you again, everybody. I want to remind everyone that going forward, the webinars will be open to Alumni Association members. So please consider joining if you're not currently a member, so that you can take advantage of Part 2 and the rest of the topics that we have coming up.
All right. Thank you, Catherine.